Hey everyone, and welcome to the Outsource Advantage, the show where we help you understand how outsourcing can actually give you an advantage in your business. Today's episode, I'm really excited for featuring John DiLoreto. John's the CFO of Miso Robotics. Miso is an AI and robotics platform serving the fast food industry. They're seeking to solve the industry's biggest problem, which is staffing, as all of us know. John recently joined Miso as the CFO, bringing 40 years of experience in engineering, marketing, sales, operations, accounting, and finance in both high tech and entertainment. So he's basically done it all in these situations. So, John, welcome to the show.
Hi, Derek. Good to be with you.
Great to be with you. As I was leading up to this, my team told me that a fun fact about you that you used to be in a rock band called Crossfire. You still
How
performing?
did they know that? They must have done some deep research. That was even
That's
before there was an internet, but it's true.
well, great. We'll jump right in. So tell me a little bit about your decision to join the Miso Robotics and what really about the company excited you.
I was brought on board as a fractional CFO for my company, Countsy, that is a consulting for back office finance and accounting services.
Hmm.
And they have been serving Miso for quite some time. With the change in
Wow.
the new CEO, he thought to bring on board a replacement CFO, and he sought one out on a fractional basis for Countsy, and I was designated as that consultant to come on board. And that was about a year ago. At the time, I had 17 other clients for which I was a
Wow.
fractional CFO. And indeed, it was a heavy lift to ramp up and join the Countsy team, even as a consultant. So it
Right.
started out as ended up being like very soon half-time work, starting to shed clients. The idea was all along that I would go away and they would hire a permanent person. Well, I talked them into letting me become that permanent person. And as of the first of this year, I've been on board as full-time permanent staff with with Miso.
Oh, that's fantastic. So can you tell me a little bit about Miso Robotics in general?
Well, Miso Robotics is one of the first players in the space to automate what goes on in the back of house for quick serve restaurants, fast food chains,
Gotcha.
if you will. And uh, the initial concept and where the name Flippy came from, the signature product, uh, it was thought that burger flipping might be a really good way to add value. Turns out that the fryer operation was mega greater opportunity for that. And Flippy very soon became the fryer robot. And so for the past 6, 7 years, Miso has been putting forth in a leadership position what can be done with respect to making fries and the likes of what goes on in the fryer operations in fast food restaurants.
That's fantastic. What problem did they, I guess, set out to solve when they were even thinking of this? Like, what drove them to really create the product?
Well, as it's becoming more and more apparent now, Derek, that there's a labor shortage problem in fast food restaurants. And having your arms stuck out over a fryer is probably one of the worst positions to be in among all of the jobs
Yeah.
that you could have at a fast food restaurant. That has become clear. Not only is there a labor shortage, cost of labor is going up. There's a profitability squeeze on all of these restaurants. It's been in the news. When you hire somebody, there's 150% turnover in these fast food restaurants. That means the first year you're hiring 2.5 people for everyone that you want to have remaining at the end of the year.
Hmm.
And there's additional training costs, there's additional workers' comp costs compared to what it would be in the environment where you have a Flippy as part of your staff, if you will.
Wow, that's
That's
great.
the outsourcing advantage, if you will, right?
Yeah,
Right there in a
yeah,
nutshell. That
that's
this
exactly
robot
right.
is works 24/7, doesn't complain, is friendly to the staff, and there's stories about birthday parties and the such. But Flippy has gotten quicker and more reliable, and we're working on a version that's more cost effective so that we can afford to roll these out to more and more companies.
That's fantastic. Well, I've got a 10-second clip here that showcases Flippy, your robot. And for our listeners, just so if you're listening to this and not watching, and the video shows Flippy working at the fry station. And so I'm going to play it for us now. It's the first time I've ever done this, so bear with me. So tell me a little bit about then when you're seeing that, what's the ordering process in a restaurant that's powered by Flippy? And do the guests get to watch the robots cook their food? Talk to me about where you've implemented this, how that really comes together.
It really depends on the restaurant. If you go to a restaurant, you can see the fry station, then you'll be able to see Flippy. Often you don't.
Gotcha.
But the ordering process remains exactly the same. But what's different, if I might describe, first of all, how it normally works,
Yeah,
is
that'd
that
be great.
if you're a fry station operator and you get an order, you get either in a tag or you get it electronic, depending on the otherwise operations. You would grab a basket, you would go over to the freezer, you would open it up, you would reach in, grab a handful of fries or nuggets or whatever, the two items typically that are in there. You would put it in the fryer, then you'd reach out over the hot oil with your arm and put it in there and hope it doesn't splash. And you're wearing long sleeves so you don't have burn marks. And then you set a timer. And what might be approximately 3 minutes later, you have to pay attention to come back and retrieve that to make sure it doesn't get overcooked. Then you take it out of the fryer, then you shake it, make sure you don't get splashes of hot oil on you while you're doing that. Then you lift it over and turn it into what they call the hot hole. And that's got, baking lights on it, and it sits there until it can be bagged into individual servings. Now, the alternative to that is you walk up to a Flippy-enabled fry station, which has either 2, 3, or 4 fryers for all the different things that can go on in there. And you press on a touch screen. You press the kind of fries that you want. You have a selection of 2 automated from the dispenser. And you select the order size. So what happens is that Flippy takes over when it's time, because there might be other stuff going on. So there's a traffic cop involved. It grabs a basket. It goes over to the dispensing station. It automatically waits while the items, the fries or curly fries or whatever they are dispensed in the proper amount into the basket. It picks it up. It puts it carefully, as you saw in the video, into the hot oil. In the meantime, you as an operator, you just see a timer that says 180 seconds or whatever the appropriate amount is for the restaurant's recipe for that item. And then you're free to go about, preparing all the rest of the order. It's just a tremendous labor savings. You're not involved in that process at all. But when it comes time for the fries to be done, Flippy comes in, reaches it, grabs it, shakes it, moves it over to the hot hole, turns it over, and it dispenses it into the area where you would expect to see it if you had done it all manually. Completely hands off.
Yeah, that's amazing. So not only is there some safety there, but I'm assuming this drastically can impact the restaurant's bottom line then. Is that fair to say?
The metrics that we've developed show that if a fast food restaurant is grossing $2 million a year, that $15,000 to $20,000 a month can be saved to the bottom line by installing one of these. It doesn't fit in all locations. It doesn't make sense for all volumes. It doesn't make sense necessarily yet, maybe 10, 15 years from now for a mom and pop. But that's the savings that we can show.
Wow,
and
that's
it has
fantastic.
to do with, employee savings, workers' comp, lack of turnover. The training is much easier than if you're training somebody to do this manually, frankly. And it's actually an employee retention opportunity because there's management skills, technical skills being developed by these employees, and they'll be more likely to want to stay. It's a more favorable work environment. We've taken the worst job in a QSR, as they're called, and made it into one of the better ones, if you might believe that.
Yeah, that's great. It was funny as you were talking, and what was going into my head that I commonly hear from customers is like, okay, if we're bringing in some sort of robotics in our services, well, what does that do to employee satisfaction or employee experience? Are they going to view it as them getting out of that job? But it sounds like what you're saying is actually it's going to make their experience better because they're not doing a job that they don't want to do anyways,
Right. It
that
it
has high
really
risk, high safety issues. And so, do you want to expand on that a little bit?
exactly. One of the ahas as we've gotten into this is just how favorably the other employees take to having Flippy as one of their co-workers. Turns out that's how they think of them. And in fact,
That's
in
great.
one restaurant chain, they actually had a birthday party, made a birthday cake, said Flippy on it for the second anniversary of Flippy having been installed at their location. They're that excited about that item, the capability as a coworker. I've even heard that an Instagram page was created for Flippy by the coworkers of one restaurant. It's an amazing experience to see how well the
That's
employees
great.
have taken to it. There's the workers' comp, there's the oil savings, there's the food savings because you don't have oversized orders, you have less waste because of overcooked
Yeah.
orders. It all adds up, and that's how we got to the $15,000 to $20,000 a month in a restaurant of a certain size.
That's amazing. So what then does the training look like for the restaurant employees that end up using Flippy or working alongside it?
Well, here I got some firsthand info for you. It turns out that everyone at Miso Robotics is required to go do at least one shift at our showcase restaurant a block away from the headquarters and a half a block away
Wow.
from our lab. It happens to be the same location where Flippy was born. It was the first,
Wow.
garage shop operation for the creation of Flippy. It's now a restaurant. It's a fully operational restaurant, and in it, it's called Cali Express by Flippy, and in it is a host of automating technologies, including a facial recognition payment system. A
Wow.
they do have a automatic burger preparation device. That turns out to be a relatively complicated, and these are third parties
Yeah.
contributions, and it delivers the Wago blend burger perfectly cooked to you so that you can assemble the burger and interface with the customer more directly. So as you imagine, there's very little labor involved and few
Yeah.
workers at that location. So I actually had some firsthand experience. But one last thing is that this is actually a showcase of historical manifestations of the Flippy technology.
Hmm.
On the wall are parts that have been machined to involve uh, glass cages with writing descriptions of older versions of the product. And they even have a couple arms over on a pedestal waving around to the music and a video screen. So it's a multimedia experience just in and of itself. But as far as restaurant goes, I can test firsthand the burgers are really good, but the fries are really probably the best I've ever had. They've just perfected all of that. So in my shift, they just pointed to a few things, and what I really needed to most of what I needed to learn is how they assemble their burger, how they
Gotcha.
toast the buns, how they put condiment on it, the order of the lettuce and tomato, etc. That was the harder part. And
Right.
then the burger comes in. But when it comes to Flippy, I mean, it's not infallible. One of the things we're working on is reliability and uptime and speed, obviously, for the high throughput restaurants. But as far as my experience was concerned, it was fantastic. All I needed to do was press the kind of fry, and I had two selections. And if you have other things, there's other ways of putting them into the system that are auto detected and dealt with. But as far as what I needed to do, select what kind of fries, select the order size. I don't know if I can't remember if I had hit go or anything, whatever. But that was it. And suddenly I get a
Wow.
180-second timer in my face, and I know, oh, I can turn my back on this. and I can go assemble the rest of the order or what have you.
Yeah.
And I'll know that I don't have to be like Johnny on the spot when those things are done, because they're going to be waiting for me in the hot hole. And it's okay for them to sit there for a few minutes without any problem whatsoever, as you might imagine.
Yeah, that's fantastic. It sounds like from what you're describing and a little bit I read leading up to this is all around the collaborative automation. And so, what I kind of got from it, from taking away your website, is and some of the research I'd done was, it's really not about some of the fears we hear out there with AI and robotics, where all of a sudden it's going to replace all humans, but it's really working alongside the human chefs and kitchen staff to just make it less time consuming, less dangerous, and drive employee experience as well as bottom line for the restaurants. And so I think it's a fantastic product. One of the things I'm interested in is, where do you get your changes from? How do your R&D path? Do you get those by customer feedback, industry trends? What
Oh,
really drives you to make improvements in the product?
that's a great question, Derek. All of these installations are on camera
Wow.
24/7. There's a video feedback to the lab. Not
Wow.
only that, there's auto sensing that send up to the web server every last little glitch that might occur. So our support staff is automatically generated if there is like a misgrab or a collision or a freeze or something out of the ordinary. They're alerted to all of that automatically. So these are
Wow.
internet connected devices with a lot of artificial intelligence built in. I haven't talked about that aspect of it, but it enables all of, and we can see what's going on by the raw video feed, and be able to determine exactly what the status of it. We get stats back in headquarters on what the percentage of downtime was, what the mean time between fail. All of that is displayed on a dashboard in our headquarters. So it's all
Wow.
connected. And if there is a software update, yeah, that's seamless. That would be driven down through the web connection, to answer your question, as well as
Gotcha.
perhaps somebody on site to maybe improve or replace a particular part.
That's great. Where do you see, I guess, in the next 5 to 10 years? Although at the rate it seems like technology is being developed, who knows what that 5 to 10 years means? But are there any trends you see out there where Miso will go over the next 5 to 10 years as we look out into the future?
80% of what we're doing is concentrating on improving Flippy. That's a sweet spot in the market. That's what's going to
Yeah.
really take off. That's probably one of the first places to take off. But if you were to look
Yep.
at what's going on in the industry with respect to kitchen automation, it's being tackled from every imaginable angle and then some. And a lot of players trying to make businesses out of it. We've fortunately been collecting data and driving the technology forward for the past 7 years. And we have a very focused approach on what we're trying to accomplish. We have an innovation lab where we have not just Flippy, but we have Drippy for coffee, Sippy for cold drinks, Washy for hand monitoring. And these are opportunities in the waiting for the right partner
Yeah.
to help us with the NRE that would help bring that to whatever particular solution that they would be looking for.
That's
But
fantastic.
you know that this is going to take off. You don't know how
Yeah.
fast, you don't know exactly when. But to your question, looking 5 to 10 years out, you can imagine this somewhat along the lines of driverless taxis. You know it's coming. You don't know how fast. You don't know exactly when. And there are a lot of people working on it.
Yep. Thank you. Anything else that you want to touch on that makes Miso Robotics stand out that we haven't covered?
Well, Miso Robotics is a very special place, and it's undergone a huge turnaround starting about a year ago when I came on board just after the new CEO. And it turns out that there's two widely different kinds of companies that create brand new products from where there wasn't anything ever before, and the rigid budget driven uh, uh, methodically managed company that commercializes a product for the
Yeah.
sake of making it into a profitable company, making it into a profitable and reliable product, and delivering that in volume to customers. And that transition turns out to be a very difficult one. It's very
Yeah.
hard. There's a lot of engineering turnover. There's a new CTO involved driving the new development process. There's a new generation of Flippy coming out in the
Wow.
fourth quarter of this year that will meet a lot of the anticipated needs, the described needs, many of the shortcomings. Not the least of which is the space required in the kitchen for something like that, which opens up a wider population of restaurants that this might be suitable for. So there are a lot of big changes taking place at Miso. I can share with you firsthand that the accounting system had to be completely rebuilt. The processes and procedures were needing to be defined almost from scratch. We've done just a tremendous turnaround in how the budgeting and accounting and financial reporting processes work, and I'm very proud of that. And
Yeah.
it's all part and parcel of the new Miso that is geared for that next stage of growth, whenever and however it occurs, Derek.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So I'm going to ask you to just take off your only hat or now Miso Robotics and basically answer this from a general perspective. If there was a organization leader out there, fast food, non-fast food, those items that might be interested in Miso or a similar solution, what questions would you advise them to think through ahead of time to determine if Miso Robotics is the right fit? Others, like what should we all be thinking about out there to prep ourselves to consider going into this space with a solution like Miso Robotics?
You mean as another company like Miso Robotics or as a
No,
potential
like if I
customer?
owned a restaurant or
Yeah.
even in our operations where something like this may help us, like what are the questions you could arm us with, my listeners, myself, of saying, look, if you're going down this path where you want to buy a product like this to use in your operations, what
Hmm.
are the things that can make us smarter that we would select a Miso Robotics over one of your other competitors and making sure it's the right fit for us?
Well, the first thing, just dropping in from 50,000 feet, Derek, is that there's, as I mentioned, a wide variety of approaches to kitchen automation, some of which may be completely inappropriate for whatever you happen to have on hand. But to
Right.
have some understanding, at least nominally, of the lay of the land as to what the possibilities are out there. When it comes to a Miso installation, for example, we do a site survey, and we're looking at the size and space, how we're going to get it in there, what kind of fryer they have, because at present it doesn't work with all fryers, what the size of the aisle is, what the electrical requirements are that need to be met, the internet connection. It's a very involved process to make sure that even if they did make the decision, we would have to understand that it's something that's going to work. That's just on the physical angle of it. But in a
Right.
business operation, I would want to be looking at, well, what does my staff look like? What is their orientation? Am I having issues in retention? Am I
Yeah.
having issues with workers comp? Do I have some really key employees I'd like to keep, and this would be something that would just make the whole back of house sparkle and spark with imagination? Uh, Also, is it something that in the marketplace that you're the first one on the block, maybe the first one in your city to have a Flippy? That has a marketing advantage, and if they could somehow see it, I don't know. It depends on whether the fry station is visible in
Right.
the restaurant. I mean, you can peek over the counter maybe and see the Flippy arms working. I mean, that's got to be an exciting thing to add to your marketing
Yeah,
program.
absolutely. I'm already interested in coming out to the restaurant you talked about.
Yeah, it's in Pasadena, just a block from our headquarters, and it's a pretty neat place. And some of us have gone back for second shifts just because it is so much fun. But it does add a lot of sparkle to a restaurant, and those are some of the considerations. Also, there's going to be a size threshold. I mentioned $2 million gross sales per
Yeah.
location for it to be above that threshold of being able to realize profitability from it. But some of these situations are strategic, and sometimes it adds to the strategy. Sometimes it may not be a fit, but the CEOs of these organizations probably have a good handle on how that might work for them.
Yeah, that's great. Well, switching gears and just a last question for you. I ask all my guests this. Tell us something that you're passionate about outside of work.
Well, you mentioned the music. It's been many years since I played in front of people who were dancing and did that for money. I also had a recording studio and made demo
Wow.
tapes for a lot of people. I have a pretty strong background in music, piano and vocals. But that's just for fun, and it's mostly behind me now. In the meantime, what I have always liked to do and don't get to do it enough anymore is backpacking. I just love the
Oh, wow.
Sierras and have historically gone out on my own for about 5 days and just chill in the wilderness and see how far I can go and circle back. It's an amazing experience, and it's one of the to answer your questions, one of the things I most love trying to be able to do.
Oh, that's fantastic. And man, 5 days out in the wilderness sounds like a blast, especially if there's no cell phone reception. I might be able to spend 10 days.
But the cell phones are actually the best nav devices out there anymore with the apps that come with. You just put it
Yeah,
in airplane mode just to save the battery. It still connects to the GPS locator, and it's embedded in almost every phone these days. And your position shows up on the map, including the trail you're supposed to be following. It's wonderful.
that's great. Well, John, thanks for joining us. Everyone out there listening or watching, thank you for tuning in to the Outsource Advantage. If you haven't already, please click subscribe and hope everyone has a great rest of your day. Thanks, John.
Thank you, Derek.